And hello, everybody, and thank you for stopping by the Massachusetts whiskey reviews. I'm Thomas Metal 75. No thanks, Microsoft Teams. And this is your Microsoft. Oh, you got me confused. Massachusetts whiskey reviews. Sorry. Thank you. Chedio, what's up? Good day to you, Chedio. All right. Today we are drinking a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey from the Old Forester brand. This is their Old Forester 100. All right, so this Old Forester 100 was at price point, a ridiculous price point of $31.99. You should be able to get Old Forester 100 and probably Old Forester 86, which is their regular strength proof, for like 23 to 25 bucks, maybe. The store I go to for beer is a big old liquor store, but it has terrible whiskey selection, terrible whiskey prices. But yes, 100 proof, making this a 50% by volume alcohol whiskey. And it being a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, that means that legally in the United States, it had to be at a 4-year-old mark for the juice inside. Otherwise, if it was less than 4 years old, you have to mention that on the labeling somewhere. And they don't mention that on the labeling anywhere. But for people that don't know, Old Forester was established in 1870, and they were the first people to create the how do they say it on the bottle exactly? I don't remember exactly, but they were the first people. They're the first bottled bourbon. There you go. And, it says in 1897 on their website, in order to comply with the legal regulations specified by the U.S. Bottled and Bond Act of 1870, Old Forester increases from 90 to this little 100 proof guy. And the U.S. Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 requires that bourbon come from one distillery and one distilling season. Bam. So George Gavin Brown, the man behind Old Forester, he purchased the Mattingly Distillery in 1901 to abide by this requirement. And if you don't know, it to be bourbon means you have to use new American oak barrels without anything previously used in it. It can have no additives in there, only natural flavors. And it has to be at least 51% corn. And for this thing to actually say bourbon, a straight bourbon as well, it must have been aged in new charred oak barrels for a period of at least 2 years. But generally, if it doesn't say 4, when it's at least a bottled and bond version, it's got to say what was the age statement on that. So how about we pour some whiskey, goddammit? I'm going to use this little Glencairn glass I got on Amazon, a pack of 4 of these. Some ice, some of it will dissolve into water if I need it, because it's 100 proof. All right, people. What are y'all drinking? Chatio's drinking the Grisette from Dry Dock in Colorado. Pretty cool. All right. Bam. I think if you go, I maybe went a little more than halfway up where the bulb shape is. That is where the 1.5 ounce pour is. All right, let's take a look at the color. All right, that color is a very amber, kind of dark honey color. Almost kind of black tea looking. Cool. Yes, there are definitely legs on this whiskey. Definitely you got the 100 proof element to that. Let's get a nose on this one. Let me back off a little bit. There's some sharp alcohol notes initially. I'm getting a lot of cinnamon, a lot of caramel toffee notes. Brown sugar. There is an appley note to that brown sugar and cinnamon and some kind of a dark raisin. Put my nose in there a little bit further. Some nail polish remover, but I got to move my nose out of that. A rye kind of a spice too, like a spicy rye or pumpernickel bread. Pie crust. Yeah, but definitely you're getting cinnamon. Definitely cinnamon in that caramel and those baking spices. And some of that green apple maybe on that one. Something pop tarty, I guess. Does that make any sense? Like the cinnamon sugar kind of pop tarty breadiness underneath there? Yeah, maybe. Let's take a sip of this old Forester 106 minutes in. Cheers. Okay, you're definitely getting some alcohol. I'm getting that brown sugar, and I'm getting a cinnamon or like a nutmeg mixture in there. Cinnamon nutmeg mixture, and there's a rye spiciness. There's a spiciness to it. Either it's like a rye bread or like a pumpernickel kind of a breadiness to the drink. Kind of oily, not too bad. I am terrible at how to describe whiskeys, but it's baking spices. It's a nice warming alcohol. It gives you what they call the Kentucky hug at 50%. Let's see if any of this ice is melted, and put a little bit of water in there. Any water? Nope. I'm going to put one ice cube in there. I know, sacrilegious. Either water or ice is really nice if you would like to get rid of some alcohol vapors, proof down the whiskey so you can get to the other flavors of the beverage. Cheers, Leprechaun. All right, so immediately the nose with this ice addition, swirling it around. Immediately vanilla frosting on top of like a angel kind of food cake, a cinnamon sugar angel food cake, vanilla frosting on that one. Now I'm getting way more of the char of the barrel. I'm getting way more of like an oaky spiciness, a wood spice mixed with that vanilla frosting primarily here at this point. This smells even more like some kind of pop tarty with the baking element. So let's try it again. Cheers. Ooh, that's way smoother. Not as long of a finish when you add your ice or your water. Thins out the mouthfeel a little bit. I felt like neat without the ice. It was more viscous and it had a longer finish to it. But this right here is definitely more of that vanilla icing, more of that angel food cake, more of that cinnamon sugar, almost maybe like a bundt cake, you know, like a cinnamon roll. Ooh, ooh, it's like a cinnamon roll. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That must be that cinnamon sugar Pop-Tart thing I'm trying to tell you. Actually got a little bit of honey on that one. Toffee, caramel. So, I mean, this is really good. And at your $23 to $25, you should be paying for this. This is not bad. Now, what's great about 100 proof whiskeys of any kind from any countries, or your barrel proofs that can be even higher, and your bottle and bonds are at 100 proof, but even your barrel proofs that can be even higher than that. What's really good is you can add your own water. You can add your own ice to the level that you desire to proof it down to the way that you like, so that you decide how much alcohol you want and where, for you at least, the bourbon is tasting, or the whiskey in general, Scotch, bourbon, Irish whiskey, Japanese whiskey, Canadian whiskey, where it tastes really great for you. Because this has really great base flavors, but they're not overly complex, this thing does do good inside of a Coca-Cola Classic. How do I know? I've done that a couple of times. Yeah. So it works really good in that regard if you want to try a little step up price point from like your Jack Daniels, but you want, a hefty proof on your pours. Let's see what else this has done before we call this review a review. But let's take a look at our chat. Leprechaun's here. Hello, Leprechaun. Ooh. Eddie Murphy. All right, cheers. All right, tons, even more and more caramel sauce or like a maple syrup is starting to come out of the Old Forester now. Cheers, cheers. Great minds think alike about 100 proof. It's his favorite style of vodka, the 100 proofs. Cheers, Blake. Cheers, bro. Cheers, everybody. I'm gonna put the oh wait a minute, that's the YouTube link. Put the StreamYard link in there. If anybody wants to show up, I'm about to skedaddle, so we can chat later after this if you want. But I don't really have a great reference point here for what to rate whiskeys. I'm starting to get into whiskey and I'm starting to love it. That's maple syrup, cooked, sugary, that caramel notes in there. Now I'm starting to get more of a bite in the background of the 50%. The proof did taste like it went down substantially when I put the ice in there. And as it's dissolved and done its thing there, again, cinnamon roll with some of that rye kind of barrel spice, to me at least. Good base flavors. Again, not complex. You don't have to think about these. You think bourbon, American whiskeys, you think a sweeter product, and damn, there it is. So, I mean, price point alone is going to make me go like this is an 86. 86 out of 100. I got a bad price point at $31.99 or whatever it was. But if you could pay $23 to like $25 and maybe spend for a 750 milliliter bottle, and then maybe spend that, what would it be? Like probably a $40, I would bet, if you ever saw an Old Forester 86 proof or an Old Forester 100 proof. Not any of their whiskey, I forget what they call it, Whiskey Row series. Not any of their really fancier, more complex stuff, but the base models here, the straight bourbons. Probably $40 for a handle of that would be a good deal if you want to introduce your friends to bourbons that are not really into them. Cool. So yeah, 86. We're going to call it a day on that. Great stuff. Come on down, Chedio. If I can spell the word down, which no, I cannot spell down. But let's hear about this grisette if you want to talk about grisette. Bam. There's the man of the hour.
Yeah, the man who got his electricity fixed. Yay!
Woo! Yeah.
Half the power of my house, it kept tripping. And I'm like, that's weird. So I called my friend who's an electrician. And the people who came by and checked my electrical, they messed with my box. So all my buddy had to do is just put like just a cord back in correctly, a wire back in. He taped it up with electrical tape. He's like, you're good to go. And I'm like,
Jesus.
He's like, they're probably trying to have you get them back out here to fix it, to charge you up the wazoo. But I have a nice looking grisette from Dry Dock that I got a crowler of it, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and it has kicked since. So I'm glad I got that. It's really good. It's comparable with the one they brought to Multi Monday. Was that last week?
Yes, last week.
Yeah, the Ursula. Very good. Not as funky, though. It doesn't have as much funk, but great taste. Yeah, 4.2%. I did do a review of this. It will come out September 4th. Ah,
All right.
alrighty.
Nice. Very good.
That quick of a review. Very good.
Damn.
It's got a good funk to it, kind of like a farmhouse funk.
Yeah, that's definitely what that reminds me of.
Yeah.
I mean, the more funk you get, I heard somebody say, I forget who was it? Was it Bumpy Road Brewery? Somebody mentioned, or it could have been miscellaneous, to mention the goose or the guise, however you say that. The more funky that style gets, you can get to that goose kind of tart Belgian style ale with that beer.
Yeah, the Ursula one I had was almost 3 years old, and that was very funky, very fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing whiskey because God knows. No, I'm starting a new habit. I'm like,
you need to get on this habit. Yeah, some pipe tobacco.
Oh,
good cigar would go with that whiskey, I bet.
I would think so. It takes you. So I'm at the level, I think, right now where I know what I have an idea what I like and what I don't like. To describe it may take a hot minute. So bear with me if I do some whiskey reviews. Sometimes if you put the water in there or you put some ice in there, you start to get past the alcohol of any percentage point. You're getting past the alcohol so that you can dig into what's actually in that product. And then you can say, okay, now I'm getting this. And I totally didn't get any of that vanilla frosting like the icing from a cinnamon bun until the water was introduced. And I went, that is exactly what that tastes like. And that's exactly what that smells like.
Yeah, I just looked that up. I could get it for like $30 a bottle around here.
It should be in 23 to 25.
Oh, wait a minute.
Store.
Yeah.
And I believe the 100 proof and the 86 should be maybe the same price or $1 or $2 more. And a handle, 1.75 liters should be only like maybe $39.99.
Nice, yeah. Then the prices around here, because it just popped online real quick and with the local liquor stores real quick. So it seems like we're comparable around here.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't have good prices for whiskeys here in Massachusetts or any liquor. It's just expensive around here for some crazy reason.
Yeah, they do that here with beer, so I get you.
Yeah, their standard offerings for the Old Forester brand are, you got an 86 proof, you got this 100 proof. They make 100 proof rye whiskey too, so they should all be in that similar price point. It's their lower entry point age product, so they're a little bit cheaper. But then they have this Whiskey Row series where they do a bunch of different things. They have a 1910, they have a 1920. I think the 1910 is a 93 proof. I think the 1920, it's funny, they're the only brand that does whiskey in the United States that was doing distillation before Prohibition, during Prohibition, and after Prohibition. There were a handful of distilleries that got lumped in during Prohibition into being able to get licenses to distill whiskeys for, surprisingly enough, medicinal purposes. All kinds of miracle medicines back in the day, and people figured that bourbon and whiskey was a kind of a miracle medicine. And kind of like when you think about medical marijuana, I suppose to a certain extent, you get, I forget how you get a card or a license to be able to actually buy that product back during Prohibition for your ailment. I think it's the same thing. You go to a doctor. So I thought that was kind of cool history. They've made it. They've never been out of business since they started.
That's insane, man. That's freaking awesome.
Yep. So I'm going to stick with an 86 based on
that sounds right. Yep.
Price point alone and easy discernible flavors and not a very long finish. But I mean, quick in and out for not an expensive product, and it doesn't taste cheap. Pretty good. Gotta say that. So Matt J.
What's up, Matt?
Yeah. Cheers.
Hello, buddy.
Matt. I'm gonna put this.
My bourbon's a little lighter.
You got
Yeah. Yeah.
You put your Jack Daniels in lemonade over there?
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody want to come in and chat away? Go right ahead.
Yep.
Later on is beer and cheese. Yeah.
I'll try to make that. I'll be at my mom's. I should try to make. I mean, I had to call out of work today when I woke up. Yelled at Alexa to turn on the bedroom light and nothing. I was like, what? And I looked at my TV. I'm like, what? And I went to the hallway and put the switch up and nothing. Then I got dressed real quick, ran up to my electric box, and half the switch it off. I popped them back on.
That's not good.
Yeah. I mean, it's an easy fix. My buddy didn't even charge me. He's like, just get me a beer next time we go to a brewery. I was like, done.
Done deal.
Yeah.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
So Matt J's in the chat. What are you drinking? You got any beverages on this fine Tuesday evening? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Anything new? Anything exciting here in this glass? Starting to warm up again. Now I'm getting. I could be crazy. I was gonna say strawberries or maybe raspberry or something at that point. Maybe. He is finishing up. Johnny Walker. Oh, Jack Daniel's Tennessee Fire. Oh.
There you go.
Tennessee whiskey is an entirely different product. I think the main difference is how they do charcoal filtration for all of their whiskeys. So I don't know exactly what the charcoal is. If it's charred, if they're chopping up pieces of the barrels and they're, charring that, and then they're using that as a charcoal or whatever. But they call that the Lynchburg. That Lynchburg process of the charcoal filtration makes it distinctively different. I think there's one brand, Pricards or something like that started calling themselves Tennessee whiskey before this Lynchburg process of filtration came about, and whoever is the body governing the Tennessee whiskey kind of grandfathered them in on that. So they don't really use the Lynchburg process, but they get to still be called Tennessee whiskey by a grandfather clause.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Look at you, Mr. Smart, with your hard alcohol.
I'm
trying to see what. There's nothing I've had that's close to the Grisette. Look at this.
Been making whiskey for a little bit in the United States.
It's funny. I'm looking at all my dry dock beers I've reviewed. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense which ones are popular on YouTube and which ones are not. That's great.
It's funny when you distill, when you're making bourbons can only be made in the United States, people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you can go to another country and they can kind of use a similar mash bill, but they can't legally call that thing bourbon unless it was made in the United States. And bourbon necessarily doesn't have to be only from Kentucky, people. Bourbon can be from anywhere. The governing body, that legally defines what a bourbon is, legally allows you to put bourbon on the label, right? And it's got to be made of a minimum of a 51% corn mash, and it has to and it can be combined. That's the only stipulation, really. But it can be combined with other things like rye and wheat and malted barley. It's got to be done in a new charred oak barrel at no more than 125 proof. So what that means is before it goes into that barrel for the first time, that new barrel for the first time, it can be, when it's done distilling, it can't be any more than 160 proof. But once it goes into that barrel, it's got to be 125. So they're watering that thing down. So technically, no matter what you're drinking for a whiskey product, pretty much anywhere in the world, they've already added water anyways to it. So by the time you get to, say, an 80 proof of 40%, they've already watered it down anyways. So you're just further kind of dampen down the flavors that way if you do any more watering it down. But bring it down to the proof that you want and the flavor profile that you want. To say to somebody, or for somebody to ask what's the right amount of water to put in whiskey, or what's the right amount of ice to put into it. I think what I've heard the best version of that is put as much as you would like in there, figure out how much you put in, and the next time you try that exact same whiskey, put in a little less than that, and keep doing that each time until that whiskey is becoming the flavor profile you want it to be. Now, if you keep putting in all the water and ice you want, you still don't get the flavor profile you want. That might not be the bottle of whiskey for you.
Yep.
What I'm thinking. So okay, so you're at 80%. You're at 160 proof. Then you're going down. Then you have to go down to 125. No more than 125, which is 62.5. You can find other countries that do way higher than that. But at minimum, you got to be at 40%. So you can't find any. You're not going to find anything called bourbon that's less than 40%. So what is it? Fireball, cinnamon whiskey, 35%. They don't mention bourbon on that at all. Yep. If you want to do something different, like the only thing you can really do differently that is not regulated by any law is how you finish your bourbon. So that's the only thing we have that we can do to affect the bourbon flavor, because depending on your mash bill, pretty much you're going to get what I talked about for the most part. You're going to get the cinnamon and your vanilla and some oak spice, and that's kind of like your bread and butter of what you're going to get out of bourbon. But you're not aging you're not aging in the finishing process. So you can do your 4 years minimum in your new charred oak barrel, and then you can say, well, I finished it in a Bourbon County Stout cask from Goose Island for another 6 months, and that's perfectly okay that you did that to call it a bourbon.
Yeah.
Any alterations you want to do beyond that, you actually need to apply for a recipe change, and the recipe change has to be labeled on the bottle and the product that you're selling. If you want to do some drastic changes, you still want the name bourbon on this product.
Makes sense.
Big to do. Imagine if IPA manufacturers and people that brew IPAs had to undergo all of this legal ramification to make an IPA. You wouldn't. I mean, I don't think that beer in the United States maybe would be as interesting if it had this amount of governmental regulation.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. For sure. Like, oh, this IPA tastes like that IPA.
Yeah. Why? Because you regulated it. But then again, there's so many different bourbons on the market. There's so many different American-style whiskeys on the market. It's amazing that with just corn and or rye and or wheat and or malted barley, you do all these different things. That's what's amazing to me about whiskey, and amazing to me about German-style beers that are hops, water, yeast, and malt by their own definition of law.
Yep.
Look at the varietal of beer styles and beer flavors you get just out of 4 freaking ingredients.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's insane.
There's a whole other subcategory in American whiskey, and they'll just call it plain old American whiskey. So if you're going to do anything outside of this bourbon territory, basically otherwise you would have been making a bourbon. For all intents and purposes, you're probably calling this thing an American whiskey. So there's another brand of whiskey that I do have. It's called Michter's Unblended American Whiskey. Why is it called American whiskey and not bourbon? Is because they're aging their product inside of pre-soaked bourbon barrels. But because it's pre-soaked for as long as they're doing it for, you can't call that thing bourbon by a legal definition. So they had to come up with their own definition. And so there's you'll find a lot of bourbon, you'll find a lot of rye, and you'll find a lot of plain old American whiskey that probably fits bourbon definition by being 51% corn, but otherwise they're doing other things in the aging process probably that cause them to become not legally able to say bourbon on that bottle.
Yep. Cheers.
But yeah, I'm sticking 30 minutes later. I'm sticking
with the 86.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's good with it's cheap enough. It's a cheap enough product that I think if you wanted to start a little bar at your home, this would be a good one to try. You think you're going to get a good mileage out of 100 proofs. I think you're going to get your money's worth out of 100.
Oh yeah,
definitely, because you're not losing any percentage by just buying a straight 40%, like I don't know, Jim Beam white label at 40%. You're not losing anything by diluting it with your other mixers. You're going to retain. I don't know what it is. I don't know how many ounces equals how many percentage points of alcohol you're actually downing, or you're actually proofing down. Not sure how that works. I'm sure somebody could tell me. Yeah. But Vanessa's here. Hello, Vanessa Kitty. Cheers.
Hi, Vanessa. Empty.
Yeah.
I still got a little bit left. I'm gonna hold on to later.
All right, people. Let's put this up one more time. It'll be in Google Hangouts if anyone's in this beer community on Google Hangouts. We're gonna hang out for a tiny bit, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I got a few.
Finish the whiskey off air. I didn't realize this was gonna be that long, but
well, you're welcome. Sorry for coming in.
I get to enjoy.
You do. That's awesome.
Our dear friend Michael Hilton loves to do this. Let me start a review. Let's just start a chat, all right?
Yeah, I know. That's usually how it goes with him.
Pretty good stuff. All right, Vanessa. And we got Blake. We had Blake in the chat.
Yep.
Matt J in the chat.
Yep.
We had Leprechaun in the chat. Wait a minute. There you go.
Yeah, it is.
Bam. All right, subscribe, everybody. Subscribe to these channels. Chettio's got a channel. Look at his t-shirt right there. Subscribe to Chettio.
I created a new shirt today. Same logo right here. The beer can logo, like what's right there, is on the back.
Sweet.
So thought that'd be kind of cool. I'll pick one up and kind of do a quality check.
Obviously, we have Thomas Metal 75. That is over there on the top right corner of the screen and the bottom of the screen. Thomas Metal 75, Massachusetts Beer Reviews. Go and look that up. This is where we're at now. Go drink some craft beer. And finish this whiskey. And until next time, keep tasting those great alcoholic beverages. Sure. Cheers. We'll see you soon. 7:30. Is that right? 7:30. No, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock for beer and cheese.
For beer and cheese. If you go to the Beer Man channel of YouTube.
Yep.
I'm out.